for you guys on Zoom, like I said, I'm gonna make them participate a lot. Here's where I want you guys to start with is, I saw, I don't know if they're really people pay attention on Zoom though, because I asked them to put name in the chat box of one person out of 6, I think, on there now. So, okay, you guys on Zoom, make sure you put your name in the chat box so that I have record. But here's where I want to start with for today. So today's class is going to be needs analysis. So we're going to be talking about, okay, you get an appointment to sit down with a buyer or a seller, and we're going to mostly talk about the buyer today. But once you get an appointment with them, so here's where I want to start with is write down, or do it on your phone or whatever. But I want you to put somewhere, and for you guys in the chat box. Well, let's see. Should I have you do it this way or not? Put into the chat box. Give me 2 or 3 questions. So write down 2 or 3 questions that you would ask. So let's assume that you were prospecting yesterday. You had set an appointment with, let's do a buyer of a house. You set an appointment with a buyer to meet with them today. They are coming to the office today to meet with you. What are the first 2 or 3 questions that you're going to ask them that will help you to know what they're looking for in a home? Hey, well, yes, please. Abby will appreciate you joining us. So what we're doing right now is I want you to just assume that you just met a buyer. They just come to the office. You set an appointment with them yesterday or something. They've come to the office today. You're sitting down to find out with them what they're looking for to buy in a home. So I want you to write down 2 or 3, the first 2 or 3 questions you would ask them that'll help you know what you want to show them in a home. Okay, so what 2 or 3 questions are you going to ask that's going to help you to know what they're looking for in a home? Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. And you guys that are on Zoom, yeah, throw it in the chat box, which people are doing it. So that's awesome. Thank you. All right. And we'll come back to them in just a little bit. We'll talk about the questions and things that you're putting in there. So I'll give you just a couple more minutes. So 2 or 3 questions, the first 2 or 3 questions that you're going to ask that will help you know what to show them as you go look for houses. Okay. Now, while you're doing that, I'm going to start here. I'm going to write this down. So let me see if they're still coming in the chat box here. People participate. It looks like there's some that have typed in stuff that haven't put your name in the chat box yet. So throw that in there just so that I have a record of who was in the class. All right, next. So you guys can continue to type those in online. If you've got other ones you're going to throw in, and we'll come back to those in just a little bit. But here's what I want you to do now. So here's what we're going to talk about next. The next piece of this is top 3 complaints about real estate agents. What do you think they are? What do you think the top 3 complaints about real estate agents are? And for you guys on Zoom, you can unmute if you want to unmute and answer questions and stuff. So Abby and Jennifer will appreciate it, right?
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
Where is this meeting in person at?
In Union Park on the 6th floor.
Oh, not in St. George.
No. Tomorrow
Okay.
I will be in St. George though. Well, today actually. Soon as this class is over, I'm driving to St. George. And
Okay.
I will be.
Thank you.
What's that?
Are you doing the 9 a.m. tomorrow?
Yes, I'll be teaching that
Okay.
tomorrow.
Okay.
There. So
Thank you.
then I'll be back here to teach this second part of this class on Thursday. So it's gonna be a quick turnaround. So yeah, so we'll see you tomorrow, Stacy. I think that was Stacy that asked that, right?
Yes, it is. Thank you. I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah.
Did you invite for the second part of this meeting? Because I only got the first part.
No, tomorrow I always do it the day before the class, so.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
But it'll be the same link. So even if you didn't get the email, just use this same link at 10 o'clock on Thursday.
Okay. Thank you.
Cool. All right. So top 3 complaints about real estate agents. Let me see if anybody threw anything in the chat box here. I'm not seeing. So what do you think? Top 3 complaints.
That they only care about like.
They never get back to me.
Okay, good. So the first one actually is what Chris just said there, is that we don't return calls. So now what did you say, Abby?
I said that like we only care about the transaction or the sale.
Okay. So
Like they're more focused on the money. You know what I
okay,
mean?
yeah, so I would say 2 and 3 kind of encompass that, but it's more detailed than even just the, meaning I think 2 and 3 are a part of what you're saying. So there's no question that's going to be part of it. So any other thoughts?
So maybe not explaining the process, like people have so many questions and they don't even know what they're signing.
Okay, good. So how I'm going to say it, this is how they say it though, is that we waste their time. So the number 3 complaint is that we waste their time. Number 2 is that we don't listen. Isn't that interesting? So top 3 complaints about real estate agents. Number 1 is that we don't return their calls. Number 2 is that we don't listen. And number 3 is we waste their time. Now, number 2 and 3 are actually somewhat related to each other in terms of why they feel like we waste their time, because we don't listen. Now, so here's the next question for you. How would you respond, or what would you say, or what would you think to this? Is it okay if we let them buy the house they want, not the one we think with it that they should buy? Is it okay to let the buyer
Absolutely.
buy the home they want rather than what we think they should buy? Yeah, and typically that's the response that I will get from people, is to say, well, yeah, of course we should. Caitlin, these guys are so glad you showed up.
Good.
Because that when I started, we only had Abby in person. She was like, oh, great, Russ just gonna stare at me the whole day.
Right?
All right. So how would you respond to that?
Yes, it's okay.
Okay, good. So Abby said, yes, it's okay. So now here's the thing. The reason I asked that question of the reason I say, is it okay to let them buy the house they want rather than the one we think they should buy, is because that is tied to where it comes from that they feel like we are wasting their time and that we don't listen, is because what ends up happening is this. So let me explain how this all works. What happens is this. Think about, this is how your brain works, okay? 10% of who you are as a personality is conscious, okay? 90% of who you are is unconscious. And what I mean by that is that most of what we do throughout our day, we do it unconsciously. The majority of the things that you do throughout the day, we have just habitualized. We've created these habits, and most of what we do is just out of habit based upon this 90%. Meaning, for example, when you first learned how to drive a car, you had to really concentrate to like push on the gas versus pushing on the brake. And in fact, I remember, so total side note, has not, well, it has something to do with what we're talking about, but not fully real estate related. I remember in driver's ed at school, we had a course that was just a parking lot that, which I'm sure everybody had that, but ours was not at the school. You had to drive. Oh, and I don't even remember how we got there now, because it was with the driver's ed. It's not like we could drive ourselves down there, but it was probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 blocks from the school that we would have to go to for this driver's ed to drive in the parking lot kind of a thing. And my driver's ed teacher though was the most, oh shoot, I lost the word. What's the word? Like a man that doesn't like women, or male chauvinist.
Yeah.
That's the word I was looking for. It was like he would totally bash women, girls, drivers, and constant. Like I think about it in today's world, he would get fired like that, I'm sure. But back then, he would constantly make comments about women drivers, girls driving, whatever. So we're down at the course for driving, and there were enough people in the class that you had to have 2 students per car. Well, I had been driving, and it's now time to switch drivers. So whoever's in the passenger seat is going to be the driver. So I'm with a girl. She gets into the driver's seat, and I'm in the passenger seat. The teacher comes over, and the windows are down. He leans down and says to me, "Keep your hand on that emergency brake, because she's a woman driver, and I don't want her running through the fence." And I was like, haha, okay. And we start driving, and I don't remember what happened. I don't know if he yelled, some reason she was supposed to hit the brake and she hit the gas, and we were going straight for the fence. And luckily he had said that. So otherwise I probably would have just sat back and been like, I don't know what to do. But because he had said, keep your hand on the emergency brake, which my hand wasn't, but it was one of the ones that had it in the middle. And as she hit the gas going towards the fence, I reached over and yanked up on it, which then stopped us. And he was like, see, I told you. But anyway, here's my point. When we were first learning how to drive, is not uncommon for a new driver, male or female, to hit the gas like as driving. If all of a sudden a car cut in front of them, it is not uncommon for somebody to hit the gas versus the brake, because we are still kind of learning that process. Or the other way I would say to think about it is, even all of us driving, if for some reason you were out driving in a major snowstorm, all of a sudden you go from just casually driving from home to the office or whatever to all of a sudden you're like a little more focused on what's going on. So the point being is 10% of who we are is unconscious, meaning a lot of what 90% is unconscious. Only 10% of the time are we really conscious to what's going on. Now, with that being said, is buying a home, well, let me actually say one other thing before I ask that question. This area, the conscious area, is where things are logical. This is where things are rational, reasonable, and we use logic in the conscious area. Down here is the emotional side of things, which when we're in that area, we make decisions based upon the emotion, not necessarily, we don't logically think through things. Is purchasing a house for most people a logical, or is it based on emotion? Yeah, typically it's more emotional. Well, now, because of the fact that 90% of who we are is unconscious, and that's where the emotional things take place. The problem is, what happens is this. So now remember, let me pause for a second and remind you. What we're talking about now is that people have the experience of real estate agents that we don't listen and that we waste their time. Now, good news is with this, and I'll say more about this later, but the good news is, especially since I have a room full of women, typically women are better at what I'm going to teach you in than what men are. Is just naturally women tend to be better at it than what men, meaning at listening and having people not feel like they're wasting their time. But even with that being the case, even though you guys are going to be better at it, it still is a problem that people have, is that they associate with it. We don't listen and we waste their time. Now, so here's what happens. They show up to tell, well, in fact, actually, let me even ask this. How many of you, and you guys on Zoom can either raise your hand or unmute and say yes, but for you guys in the room, for sure, just respond to me on this. How many of you have either said yourself or you have heard somebody say, I know what I want, but I don't know how to explain it. I'll know it when I see it. So you okay, you can relate to that? Okay, good. What about you guys on Zoom? Have you ever heard somebody say that or said it yourself in looking for a house? I see a yes, I say that, say it too, and a thumbs up. Okay, good. Now, So here's what's going on. The reason that somebody will say that, or that you would be the one saying that, is what you're saying is this. The information is here in the unconscious. I just don't know how to explain it to you in a way that would make sense. Therefore, they say, I'll just know it when I see it. Well, that's part of the challenge that we have. And that's part of what creates this, that we waste their time and that we don't listen and we waste their time, is because that information is down here in the unconscious. Now, here's what goes on. When we ask the questions, so I had Caitlin, before you got here, I had everybody write down 2 or 3 questions that they ask a buyer when they first meet them, meaning when they come to an appointment, that you would first ask them, that's going to help you know what they're looking for in a home that they want to buy. Well, what ends up happening is we ask those questions, whatever they are, and I'll come back to those questions. But what happens is we ask those questions, and most of those questions, which I haven't looked at, had you guys share yours, but I looked at a bunch of the ones that are in the chat box. Most of the questions that we ask are designed around being answered at this level, the conscious level. Most of the time, the questions that we ask are designed around that. Meaning when we ask things like, and this is what well, let me tell you what before I learned this process, this is the way I would work with a buyer. I would sit down with them and I'd say, okay, so we're going to talk about your house. So let's start with first, what style of home are you looking for? And then they would tell me whatever style of home that, we want a 2-story, we want a rambler, whatever. And I'd say, okay, and how many square feet did you want? And then they would say, whatever square footage. And how many bedrooms? How many baths? How many car garage? Like all of those questions are designed around this conscious level, the logical side of things. And the challenge is that's not where people make the decision. The decision is not going to be based on that. So then what happens is we then take that information and we sit down on the MLS. And the reason we ask the questions that way is because that's how you go do a search on the MLS, is you have to go in and put style, location, price range, how many square feet, how many beds, how many baths, all these features, right? So we plug all that stuff in the MLS and then it spits out whatever properties. Well, but the problem is what they're looking to buy and why they say I'll know it when I see it is because everything is down here in the unconscious but they don't know how to bring it to the conscious level, which is why they say, I don't know how to explain it, but I'll know it when I see it. Well, what happens then is they try to do their best to take what it is they want down here and move it up to this level. Then they share it over here to you, so just to keep my colors going here. What happens then is it comes over to you where 10% of you is conscious and 90% is unconscious. What happens then is we take what they said in terms of the feature. So let me do this. Okay, so they give us and they tell us the features they want. You then take what it is that they've said in terms of the features into your conscious level. But then you interpret it or you break it down as to what it means to you down at this level. And so you take it down and incorporate it into that level of what it would mean to you. Now, then what happens is that, well, actually, before I tell you then what happens, I'm going to give you a scenario, okay? So but keep in mind for now, this is part of what we're answering the question of is the don't return calls is obvious, just call people back. But where people have the experience of real estate agents don't listen and they waste their time is tied to this, because we ask them questions that are based on logic. They then try to answer the questions based on logic, which doesn't really get us anywhere. So then they try to explain what they're looking for in terms of the emotional, but they don't know how to do it. And I'll show you why that is in a second, and bring it up to the conscious level and try to explain it to you the best they know how. The problem is the best they know how we interpret and it means something different to us. So here's the next piece I would say for your notes of what we're talking about is the problem that you and I have, all of us have in terms of communication, is that when we're talking, typically what happens is we communicate one thing, but we actually mean something else. Okay. So the way you and I communicate is we say one thing, but we actually mean something different than what we say. Now, here's what's going on though, is they start telling us what they want in terms of the features, okay? They tell us about the features that they want to buy in a home, but people don't buy the feature. The feature actually provides a benefit, okay? So they start telling us about features that they want, but it's not really the feature that they want. So, okay, so let me give you this scenario quick here. Okay. I'm going to be the buyer. Okay. So you guys had written down some questions. So let's use some of the ones you guys did. So Abby, what were the 2 or 3 questions that you had asked? Or that you would ask?
Budget and are you pre-qualified?
Okay. So her question was my budget and am I pre-qualified? So my budget, we'll just say that my budget, I don't know. I haven't been pre-approved yet, so I don't know what it looks like. And so the answer to the second question is no, I haven't been pre-qualified. So what would be your next thing you would ask me then?
The style of the home that you're
Okay, good. So then she starts going to ask me into okay, what style, how many bedrooms, how many baths. So let's say that I said this, and then you guys tell me what you're going to do with this, okay? I tell you, I want to buy a home that's high on a hill with a view of the city lights. So, and now I don't need you to tell me specifically, like, where are you going to show me houses? You don't need to be specific, but just in general, if I said to you, I want to buy a home high on a hill with a view of the city lights, where are you going to show me properties? Okay, and I don't even need you to be that specific, even less specific than that. What are you going to show me?
Views of the city lights, is that right?
Yeah, I want a home high on a hill
Uh-huh.
with a view of the city lights. So just in general.
I'm gonna be showing you on the bench somewhere.
Okay, good. So in essence, you're going to show me homes that are on a hill
Mhm.
with a view of city lights, right?
Yeah.
That's what we all would do because what I said I wanted was that. Now, so remember the notes that I just had you write down is the challenge with communication is we tend to say one thing, but we actually mean something else. Now, so answer this for me now. And for you guys on Zoom, throw it in the chat box or unmute, either way. But good, yeah, I'm seeing somebody saying they would have shown me houses with city lights. Perfect. Now, answer this question. What would be the reason you think, and there's not a right answer, so just whatever you think, the first thing that comes to your mind, okay? Because there's not a right answer. What do you think I want the home high on a hill with a view of the city lights for? What would be the purpose that someone, specifically, whatever first thought comes to you, of why would you want a home high on a hill with a view of the city lights? Or if you wouldn't, why do you think somebody else would want one like that? So
Nobody
everybody
behind me to ruin my view.
So say that again.
Nobody behind me to ruin my view. I'd rather look at a view than my neighbor.
Okay, good. Okay, so and what would that do for you though? I think we lost him. Oh no, you're still there. So why, Chris? I think that was Chris, right?
It will give you the open feeling.
Okay, good. And what does an open feeling do for you, Mariana?
Good question. What does an open feeling do for me?
Okay.
Makes
And
me
like I
feel
said,
good.
say it again. Sorry.
Makes me feel good. It's what I want. It's
Okay,
what
good. Okay, so what about you guys in here? So what would you want the home?
Yeah,
Like-
maybe they want a couple work, they just sit down and look at the view and lights, they just,
gives you space.
yeah, they just like, it's a feeling,
Okay,
Doesn't make you feel so crowded like living in Daybreak.
okay, good.
yeah. I don't know, you get great sunsets and sunrises that way too, with an unobstructed view.
Okay. And
Maybe
what,
like a sense of privacy too, with no one in front of you, but also
okay, good.
you're still in the mix, right?
Okay, good.
romance.
Okay, good. Now you guys are starting to get where I wanted you to go to is the privacy, romance. What other things could somebody want a home high on a hill with a view besides, so privacy, romance?
Relaxation.
Okay, good. And when you say relaxation, to me, what that means is more of a.
No traffic noise, yeah.
Okay, good. No traffic noise, all that. Okay, good. Now, so pause for a minute. And let me try to tie some pieces together for you. When they said they wanted a home high on a hill with a view of the city lights, think of it this way. A home high on a hill with a view of the city lights. So I'm just going to write hill/view. Okay, here. That's a feature. That's the feature that they said. But why would they want it is really getting to the benefit. So when I said to you guys, why do they want it? A lot of you kind of just said, oh, because like they like to just sit out on the porch and look at it. Okay, that's good. And we're getting closer. But really what they want the home high on a hill with a view of the city lights for is the benefit that that's going to provide to them. So it's about the benefit that a home high on a hill with a view of the city lights is going to provide. And a benefit, and there's 15 of them, but I probably won't give you the 15 today. I may or may not. We'll see where time gets to in terms of the class. But for sure, I'll give them to you on Thursday. Is they're really, when somebody tells you what they're looking for in a home, let me say it different. When they say to you, I know what it is, but I don't know how to explain it. It's what they're referring to when they say that is the benefit. There is a benefit that they're looking for in that home, but they don't know how to say to you, I want to have privacy.
But
Well,
not privacy.
what's that?
But not privacy, like you want it to be private, but at the same time, like not like out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, exactly right. Yes, perfect. That's good. So just kind of keep in mind that whatever the benefit is, the benefit resides down here in the 90%. But that's not the way we talk. Meaning, now let me say it this way even. Imagine somebody shows up to you and says, you ask them, so what kind of home are you looking for? I want one that is going to give me privacy and some romance. Okay. So then what would be, like, there's not a box on the MLS to go, I need homes that are romantic. Like that doesn't exist. So that's the challenge that you and I have is we have to, what we're going to talk about today and Thursday is how do we transition away from, they show up saying they want a feature. They talk about features, but it's not the feature they really want. It's actually the benefit that that feature is going to provide. Okay. Now, so watch this. I show up and I say to you, I want a home high on a hill with the view of the city lights. You then start to show me homes high on a hill with the view of the city lights. Now, remember, what we're still talking about here is how people have this experience that we don't listen and we waste their time. Because here's the funny thing. When I teach this with seasoned agents in it, and I say that they feel like we waste their time, agents typically are like, no, it's the other way around. The client's wasting our time because of this, because here's what happens. I told you I wanted a home high on a hill with a view of the city lights. But let's say that really what I wanted was privacy, since you guys brought that up, okay? So here's what happens. We go out and we start to look at homes. And we get to these homes that are high on a hill with a view of the city lights, okay? So wherever, doesn't matter what location, but we go and look at these homes high on a hill with a view of the city lights. When we get there and we go out and look at it, now remember I said what happens is they have a benefit that they're wanting the home for, but they only know how to explain it to you from the standpoint of features. So they say high on a hill with a view of the city lights. You then interpret that into what it would mean to you of having that home high on a hill with a view of the city lights. So now when we go out and we look at the houses, let's say, for example, I'll give you one of the other benefit words is entertainment or to entertain. Let's say that for you, the reason you would want a home high on a hill with a view of the city lights is because you like to have parties and you would want to have tons of people over out on the deck in the evening, watching the sunset while you're just all kind of mingling and just having this great time. Guess what you're going to talk about when you go out on the deck of that house? You're going to talk about the view, but what else?
place for. a
No,
house.
because you wanted it. No, you want the house. Now, so here's the problem. Before you learned what I just said about they're really buying the benefit, not the feature, you're gonna talk about the benefit it would be to you, not to them.
Yeah.
Which is why I said, is it okay if we let them buy the house they want? Is because what happens is we go out on it and we're like, oh, look at this view. Like I could just imagine like having a ton of people over, you're all just out here, having a barbecue, watching the sunset or, whatever. We tend to talk about it from the standpoint of what the benefit to us would be. And it's not what the benefit to them is. Therefore, they feel like, why do every time? So like I said, men tend to do this worse than women, but we all do it still. What happens though is in their experience, they're sitting there at this property. You're talking about all these people. Imagine how many people, oh my gosh, I could just see how, look, you got plenty of parking or whatever. You're just talking about, because if entertaining is more important, one of the benefits you would want in a home, you'll tend to talk about that benefit to this house. But they don't see it that way. And they then start to feel like, well, how come every time we go out, they're talking about the house from their perspective? Now, they don't consciously think this, but this is what's going on unconsciously, is they feel like you're showing them houses that are important to you, not are important to them. Okay. So now let me ask you this. So let's say that I said I wanted a home high on a hill with a view of the city lights. You take me out and show me homes high on a hill with a view of the city lights. The meantime, there's a home that's tucked away in a canyon, surrounded by nothing but trees. I see it on the MLS or on some website. I call you up and I say, oh my gosh, I found the perfect house. Here's the MLS number. How soon can we go see it? You pull it up on the computer, pops up, and you notice it's in a canyon surrounded by nothing but trees. What's going through your mind if you didn't know what we've talked about today? What are you thinking in your mind when you pull that up and you notice that?
There's no view, like, you're confused as to why are we going to look at this? This isn't what you told me you want in a home.
Perfect. That's what, right? Every one of us is going to do that, is we're going to pull it up and go, seriously? They want to go look at that. And then usually what we do is we go find some other agent in the office and we go, Abby, you're not going to believe this. I got this buyer. They told me they wanted a home high on a hill with a view of city lights. And then they call me today. Hey, we found a house. So I go look it up. There's no view, anything. Like, I can't even believe I'm going to go show them the house, but I guess I will. So you get in the car, you go drive over there, you go walk through it, and you're kind of a little annoyed because you're like, seriously, we're going to go see this house. So because of the annoyance, you just kind of open the door, you stay out of the way. They walk around and they're like, oh, this is perfect. We want to write the offer. Awesome. Yep, let's get it. So you go write the offer, close, everything. They're happy as can be. There is a term in real estate that you either have said or will hear people say if you haven't said it or haven't heard it yet. And it is that buyers are liars. Has anybody heard that yet?
Not yet.
You haven't. Okay. I promise you're going to hear agents say buyers are liars. Here's what I want you to remember after this conversation today. That is not true. The problem is, really what the problem is, not that buyers are liars. It's we are poor communicators. We are not good at communicating and helping them figure out what it is they really want, the benefit. Because let me ask you this. If what I wanted was the home high on a hill with a view of the city lights so that I had privacy, could I get that privacy from a home tucked away in a canyon surrounded by nothing but trees? What if it was romance? Could I get the same thing from that? What if it was to entertain? Maybe, maybe not. But here's the key. The key thing you got to remember is when people show up telling you the feature, it's not the feature they want. They're not looking to buy the feature. They want to buy the benefit that feature provides. And if they can find a property that will provide the benefit, and it doesn't have that feature, they'll buy it. It's not the feature that they want. But the reason they tell us features is because that's the way you and I have been trained to communicate. And we communicate at this surface level that is not designed around figuring out and getting down to the benefit. Everything we're going to talk about basically from here on is now designed around getting to the benefit. Going from the feature that they said that they want to getting down to the benefit. And as I said, there's 15 benefit words. What I have found is everything that somebody is looking for in a home will distill down to one of the 15 benefit words. And that's what we do. So how do we do it? What does the process look like for that? Now, so before we get into the process, there's one more piece that I got to show you. The next part of this. So the next level of this, of how the brain works, how your brain stores information, is it stores it in discrete locations. Okay. Now, what I'm about to explain is not exactly the way that it happens, but as far as teaching it, it's the best way to teach it of how it happens. Okay. But what I'm about to say is not actually the way it happens, but the principle behind it works. Okay. What happens is this. Your brain stores information in these discrete locations. And what happens is this. It stores the pictures in one area. It stores the decisions in another area. And then it stores the feelings in another area. Now, we already talked about buying a home really is more of an emotional thing than it is a logical. What happens is this though. So again, when they're saying to you, I know what it is, but I don't know how to explain it. The reason they don't know how to explain it is because down here in the unconscious, what has gone on is they have the pictures of what they want in a home in one area of the brain. They have their decisions they've made about it in another area and their feelings about it in another area. And so when they're saying to you, I will know it when I see it, but I don't know how to explain it, is because what they don't know how to do is to go into their brain and access the pictures, the decisions, and the feelings, and to bring them back together again. So when you can bring the pictures, the decisions, and the feelings back together, when you can bring them to the surface, is probably another way of saying it. When you can get that to happen, is a term that we call crystallization. Now, probably the most important thing that you can learn from this class today that I'm teaching you guys in, probably the most important thing you can learn is that what we are doing when we do a needs analysis. So when you think about doing a listing and presentation with a seller or a buyer presentation with a buyer, but we're mostly just going to talk buyer today and Thursday. We're going to talk about the buyer of a house because it's easier for you to learn it this way for the buyer. Then once you've learned it, then I can bring in the seller piece. But if you don't remember anything else that I talk about, make sure that you remember this. The purpose of us doing a buyer interview with a buyer or even a listing presentation with a seller is to cause crystallization. Crystallization is the moment that the pictures, the decisions, and the feelings come back together again. They reintegrate. That is when crystallization occurs. Now, think of it this way. Every time you have ever had an aha moment, anytime you've ever had an aha moment in your life, that is crystallization occurring. But not every time that somebody crystallizes will it be an aha moment. So let me say that again. Every aha moment you've ever had is crystallization. But not every time somebody crystallizes is it going to be an aha moment. So meaning it's possible that you take somebody through this process and they crystallize and then it's just like, well, that's what I want. But it's also possible that you take somebody through this process and then they crystallize and it becomes this aha moment for them as well. So every aha moment you've ever had is crystallization, but not every time you crystallize is it going to be an aha moment. Okay, so it's just important you understand that. Now, the most important thing you can hear, I'm going to say it again just because it is. The most important thing you can hear from me is that your job is really to get people to crystallize. If you can get them to crystallize on what it is, the benefit, they'll buy. Or in a case of a seller, they'll sell. They will buy or sell. Nobody will buy or sell until crystallization occurs. Crystallization is the process that allows them to move forward. So that's why I'm just being so specific on this of like, don't forget, this is what we're trying to do. Because what you're gonna see here in a little bit is we're gonna get a ton of good information from them that is all, for the most part, mostly feature related. But it's not about the feature. Remember that. Don't forget, it's not about the feature. It's about the benefit that feature provides. And so the challenge that I have in training this is people get caught up in feeling like, well, if I have them be as specific as I'm going to have you be with it with a client, that, and now talking about the buyer of a house, if I'm that specific with them and they get that detailed on it, there's not going to be a house out there that exists based on how they want it. Therefore, they're going to have to go build a house. That's not true. Because it's not the features they're buying, it's the benefit they're buying. Now, and I'll share more about that as we go. But just as a test. So what are we trying to do when we sit down with a buyer or seller?
Crystallization.
Good, yes. We're trying to cause crystallization because nobody's going to buy or sell until they do that. Now, so if that's true, what I just said, how do people ever go and buy and sell? Because what the process I'm going to train you in, not very many people have been taught in. There are a lot of people who do it naturally, just intuitively they go about this. So I don't want, like, I'm not arrogant enough to say that like nobody else knows this. Like there are people who intuitively just kind of just know, they don't know why they do it, but they just do it. But without that, how do we get somebody to crystallize if I don't take them through a process to create it? Any ideas?
Wait, say that again. So how do we get them to do it if we're not?
Yeah, if I don't know the process
Oh,
of causing crystallization,
uh-huh.
and nobody's going to buy until they crystallize, how, because there are millions of agents out there selling properties today to buyers that don't know how to cause crystallization, probably have never even heard the term in relation to real estate, yet they sell houses. So how do they get it to happen?
Well, I think you gotta ask questions, but not just that, but like dig deep.
Okay,
Like,
good.
oh, why is that important? Like
Good.
you've gotta kind of not your how big of a home, you know, those ones, but like, oh, why is that important to you?
Good.
It's a little bit more of digging deep and get them to talk to you and listen, so you can try and pick up what that benefit might be.
Okay.
And which one's most important too?
Yeah.
Good.
Like having a view is more important or privacy is more important.
Right.
Or
Okay,
having your-
good. Now, so here's the thing. Here's how it happens. The way that people do it who haven't been trained in a process, what they do is it's a term that's called information loading. What they do is they information load the client. Well, how would we do that? Typically, it's done by they go and show them a ton of properties. If you have a buyer ever that you're having to keep showing properties, you keep showing them over and over and over again and they don't buy, it's because crystallization hasn't occurred. But
So I've been a hairdresser for 20 years.
okay,
In my last year, I kind of understood how to work. And it's true, it works for everything. So a new client that will come in, I'll be like, what do you do during the day? What do you style and what do you like? And I will have to ask all these questions. And most likely they will have a happy haircut. But I learned that I have to really understand how they feel, what do they do, what do they need it for at the moment. And all these questions became a happy haircut.
oh, awesome.
100%.
So could you guys on Zoom hear what she said?
But it took me many years to understand that.
That's awesome. That's perfect. Because
Not
that's
really.
okay. So basically, what
really.
she was a hairdresser, and what she looked for 20 years. And she said basically at the end of that 20 years, she finally had learned if when somebody came in to get their haircut, if she would stop and ask them a number of questions of just kind of what they do and how they do it and what they were looking for, she could give them a haircut that they would be happy with. And without
Multiple
that,
times.
yeah.
No doubt about it.
yeah, awesome. That's the same concept of this. Translate that over to real estate and you got it. Okay.
So some people will be like, why are you asking me? Like get mad. Like
Yeah.
I really need to know because if you don't tell me how I know what you want, like it comes from an idea that I don't understand what you here for. I need to understand why are you here for, so that I can, because I'm guessing you first time here. The old ones, no problem. It's
Yeah.
the new ones.
Sure.
And with real estate, it's like a new one all the time. So
That's
you
right.
need to do that all the time.
Perfect. Yes, you're right on, so one of the things that she said there is that they would sometimes get frustrated. Why are you asking me so many questions? I'm going to show you how to do this in real estate so that they don't say the same thing in real estate of like, why are you asking so many questions? And even if they do, you can tie them back to this permission that I'm going to give you that you're going to ask them for so that they will then go, okay, I got it. Okay, so crystallization is the most important thing. Now, here's the thing. A few months from now, if you and I were in a separate class and I said, okay, guys, here's the test. What do we do a buyer interview for or a seller interview for? You're going to go, well, to help them figure out what house they want to buy. But that's not it. It's to cause crystallization. That's the most important thing. Because here's the thing. If you cause crystallization, they're now empowered to buy. They're ready to make a decision. And so I'm going to keep coming back to that today and Thursday of the purpose of us doing this whole thing is to cause crystallization. Because without it, they're not going to buy. And so therefore, what typically happens is people show houses and the people don't buy. They keep showing houses, they don't buy, keep showing houses, they don't buy. Eventually they get information loaded enough that then the crystallization will occur. So just know, nobody buys anything without crystallization occurring. It's just typically the way people go about it is through information loading, is they just keep looking at houses until finally they crystallize on, okay, now I get it. Now, so what we're trying to do is the way we get them to crystallize is on the benefit because it's the benefit they're buying. So the next piece of this, people buy in 2s and 3s of the benefits. So what that means is this, and Abby kind of already started to say, but is when they go out to look for a home to buy, the home they buy is going to have 2 or 3 of the benefits that are most important to them in a home. Now, let me give you an example of that for me, because part of when I learned this process was, I think it was right before actually I bought the home that I'm in. And so being in the class, learning this process, actually, I think caused the crystallization for me that then I went and bought a house. So, which is not too uncommon for that to take place because again, once they crystallize, then they're ready to go. So here's what happened though, is I went to the class and I haven't gotten into the details of this, but as the person that just role playing this and learning it, the person has asked me the questions that then got me thinking. Well, the features that I said that I wanted in the home were these. I said I wanted 1 acre of land. I wanted a 2-story with a pool in the basement. Okay. Now, here's the interesting thing though. If I would have been if I wasn't an agent and I would have been a buyer of a house at the time and I had come and met with you and you had asked me what any of the questions you guys have put down, if you had asked me any of those questions, I would have answered it by, we want 1 acre, I want a 2-story. Oh, the other piece too is 3-car garage. Some of the other things that I would have told you as well is I would have said no north facing driveway. Like that would have been one of the first things I probably would have told you. I want a home I want 1 acre, 2-story, pool in the basement, at least a 3-car garage and no north facing driveway. Yet the home that I bought has a 1/4 of an acre. It is a 2-story, check. There's no pool in I do live in a PUD, so we do have a neighborhood pool that's right outside of my backyard, but I don't have a pool in the basement. So I don't have that. I do have the 3rd-car garage and my driveway is north facing. So here's the thing. Remember, you're going to hear people say buyers are liars. Again, from today forward, remember what they're really saying. Now, don't tell them this, by the way, but what they're really saying to you when somebody says buyers are liars, what they're really telling you is I'm a poor communicator. I'm not very good at getting people to tell me what the benefit. Because here's the thing. I will tell you, when I showed up and said I wanted a home on an acre, I bought one with a 1/4 acre, but the benefit that I was looking for in the 1 acre, I got it. So here was the benefit. So let me show you. The benefit I wanted with this is recreation. So that's one of the 15 benefit words is recreation. I wanted a 1 acre lot because if somebody had asked me additional questions, which goes to what you were saying, Caitlin, is you have to ask, and same with you, Jennifer, you got to dig down on the questions of like, okay, what are you want an acre, what are you going to be using it for? Or, why do you want the 1 acre? What is it about an acre? Well, if somebody had asked me that, then I would have gone to, well, I had 3 boys. Actually, at the time I only had 2, but I had 2 boys, and my oldest at the time was, how old was he? 8, 9, something like that. My youngest was like recently born. And so at the time I got 2 boys, an 8-year-old. No, he's not that. They don't have, it's between my second and I don't even know the age gap of my kids. There was a 4-year. So the oldest one was 4, maybe 5. And the youngest was just born because there was 4.5 years between them. And then there's an 8 years between my second and third. But I'm looking at it kind of going, okay, they're going to be growing up. I want to go out and play baseball. So in my mind, I'm like, I need at least an acre so I could go out and play catch and we can put a basketball court in, all that kind of stuff. Yet I bought a home that's on a 1/4 acre, but I already told you my neighborhood is part of a planned unit development. And right outside of my backyard has the neighborhood pool. There's a basketball court. There's a tennis court. There's a big grassy area. Like it meets the benefit that I was looking for. But what else goes along with 1 acre besides space to play? What are you gonna, did you say responsibility? Yeah, like to do what?
Maintenance.
Yeah, maintenance.
Yeah.
I don't want to do maintenance on all that.
And there's a lot of like building codes and stuff like that. Like, could you even build a basketball court or like your pool in the basement? Could you even have that
Right.
in the house?
Yeah. So that's just it. Is notice though, like here's what would have happened. So like to bring this to real life for you guys, here's what would have happened. And again, trying to help you understand how this unconscious works. I would have said to you, I want a home on an acre, at least an acre is probably how I really would have said it. At least 1 acre and 2-story. Well, guess what would have happened? Every time we went and actually looked at a property, I would have walked into the backyard and looked at it. And part of what would have gone on in my unconscious is the amount of work that would take to keep up on that yard. And I would have been like, that's the funny thing. The 1 acre, the reason I wanted it was for recreation with my kids, but it actually would have, in my mind, every time you showed me a property with at least an acre, what would have gone through my mind is I'm going to spend all day on Saturday working in the yard. Now, not at a conscious level, that would have never happened. Like consciously, I wouldn't have thought that. But what would have been going on is unconsciously, I would have been like, oh, I don't know. I'm not sure about that. Like, let's keep looking. See, without getting down to the details of this, this is what goes on in a buyer's head. Yet, I bought the 1/4 acre and I'm totally happy. Now, my wife, on the other hand, is still today saying, our next house will have at least an acre. And I'm like, no, it won't. Although here is what I did say, because in fact, I came to this realization teaching this class one day, because it was within the last year, my wife had said, our next house will have an acre. And here's what I realized is I'm okay with that as long as we can have the agreement that we're paying somebody to come and do the yard. Then I'm good with an acre if we do that. See, but without that, I'm like, I don't want an acre. On a 1/4 acre, I already feel like we got too many flower beds. It takes too much of our Saturday to go keep out all the weeds and all that kind of stuff. So I'm already like, because I'd rather go be doing something fun than working in the yard. Does that make sense? So for me, when I bought now this home that's on a 1/4 acre, but because right outside of my backyard is the pool, it's got the park, it's got tennis courts, it's got basketball courts, it's got all the space for the stuff that I wanted to do, but I don't have to maintain it. So that's how somebody would look at it and say buyers are liars, because I would have shown up saying I want an acre, but the truth is I didn't want an acre. What I wanted is room to go out and play baseball with my kids. Does that make sense? Okay. So 2-story I bought, which we can get into details of some of that later. Pool, I don't have a pool. But here's what I really wanted. Now, here's the thing. At the time that I sat down and said I wanted a pool in my basement was because for exercise at that time, I was driving to Gold's Gym. So I would go out of my house, I would jump in my car, I would drive to Gold's Gym, which was 3 miles from my house. I would drive the 3 miles, I would get out, I'd park, I would go in, I would swim laps. I would get out in the winter. This is where it hit me, that I was like, I want a pool in my basement, is I would get out of the pool. It's winter time, my hair's wet because I'm a guy and I would not ever use, a hair dryer because we don't do that for whatever reason. But so I would leave, I would go back out. It's winter, my hair's wet, I'm freezing cold. I get in my car that's cold, drive the 3 miles back to my house. And I was like, I want a pool in my basement because then I wouldn't have to be cold. I could go swim. See, that's what I wanted it for. But really, if we distill down to what that benefit is of the pool in the basement, is convenience. Convenience is what I was looking for. That was the benefit. It wasn't a pool. I was looking for convenience in exercise. Now, I told you I bought the home and it has a pool outside of my backyard. Guess how many, I've been there 20 years now. Guess how many times I've gone over and swam laps in that pool? More than 0. But it's probably less than 10 in 20 years. I'll bet less than 10 times I've gone over and swam laps.
Isn't it closed in the winter though?
And it's closed in the winter. Yeah, it's only open from Memorial Day to Labor Day. That's it. But here's the thing. Also around the neighborhood is a 2-mile walking trail that I go out and run that trail literally almost every day. But the thing I love about it is the convenience. See, it wasn't the pool I wanted. It was convenience for exercise is what I was looking for. That makes sense? Now, north facing driveway. Now, here's the thing. So now the reason I'm telling all of this is I'm tying you back to this of people buying 2s and 3s. Well, now look at what's just happened here is, let me go to the 2-story. The reason I wanted a 2-story is growing up as a kid, my bedroom was in the basement and my basement bedroom had a window that you guys on Zoom, sorry, you can't see, but basically it was almost the size of this, like literally the bedroom window in the basement was about the size of that. And my house, the way that the yard was, that we had a walkout basement. So my room's in the basement. It has a window which is essentially at ground level, the window. And as a kid, like I don't know how I ever slept because I constantly was scared somebody was going to come in that window. So here's what, and the only reason I know this now is because of this process we've talked about is, so the reason I wanted a 2-story was about security. In a 2-story, like you don't have to worry about somebody climbing in a bedroom window in a 2-story, unless the roof's right there, I guess, potentially, which, well, no, totally different story. But so watch this though. I showed up and said, I wanted a home that was on an acre, 2-story, pool, 3-car garage, and no north facing driveway. People buy in 2s and 3s. When they first show up and start telling you what they want to buy in a home, everything's important. There's no difference, meaning when I first started this, I would have said all of these things were important and don't even show me, like I would have showed up telling you, don't even show me houses that have a north facing driveway because I hate that every winter I'm out there shoveling my north facing driveway and my neighbor across the street with a south facing driveway doesn't have to shovel because, on the big days, obviously they do. But I was like, I don't want to have to do that. But now watch this. I just told you the home I live in now has a north facing driveway. Now, here's the thing though. When we first went in to buy it, my house actually faces west. So my driveway should face to the west. Oh, the other thing I said I didn't want is no corner lots. I wanted a cul-de-sac, but no corner lots. And you can probably deduce already that if my house faces west and my driveway's on the north, I have a north facing, I'm on a corner lot in a cul-de-sac, which my first house was a cul-de-sac corner lot and I hated it because of the same thing. When it comes to mowing the lawn and edging, I have so much more. And when you got to shovel the sidewalks, I got twice, 4 times as much, whatever, the neighbors. So I was like, I don't want it. Yet I bought my home and has it. Now, initially it wasn't going to be north facing, but in order to have a 3-car garage on it, so we had it built, the home built. In order to build it, put the 3-car garage, because of setbacks, they had to turn it. Or I could only have a 2-car garage. So notice that early on in this, all of this stuff's important, but here's the key thing that I wanted you guys to see is the 2 or 3 benefits that were most important to me. The 2 or 3 most important I got. And what will happen is as long as they can get 2 or 3 of the benefits, they'll give on some of these other things. So like I almost gave on going to a 2-car garage just so that I didn't have to have a north face. But then I was like, no, I'll regret that for in the summer so anyway, does this make sense what I'm saying so far? Okay, so just keep in mind that it's 2 or 3 benefits and they have to crystallize on what those are. And once they do, some of this other stuff, they'll deal with. See, what it boiled down to is all because the rest of this stuff came together, I was good. I was like, I'll deal with some of and there were a few other features that I said I wanted, but these were the things, like I would not have bent on the recreation part. So meaning, this is where the whole thing of buyers or liars come from though, is they show up saying they want 1 acre, but they don't really want 1 acre. They really want recreation. And in my mind, so here's the problem. Here's the next piece that I hope you're connecting some dots on. In my mind, I never even thought about the idea of having a park right next door to my house. And if somebody would have said that to me, well, what about if you so you didn't have to do the maintenance, you had a park right next door? I would have been like, there's crystallization. I'd be like, oh yes, perfect. That'd be even better. Because yes, I could go out, I can use it, but I don't have to maintain it. Now I do have to pay an HOA fee to make, but I'm glad to do that. I don't care because I don't have to do it. Okay, make sense? Questions? Anybody online? Questions?
No, it's all crystal clear.
Oh, good. I love it. All right. Next piece of this then is, let's see, where should I erase? So how do we do it? That's the next piece then, okay? So hopefully everything's clear in terms of the why we're doing it, what we're trying to cause happen, where the whole thing of buyers or liars comes from, why it is that they show up saying they want one thing, but they buy something else. Is because we communicate one thing, we mean something else. So how do we make it happen? Well, here's the first piece of this. So we'll probably actually only get to, so there's 3 steps to this. And I think what we'll do is we'll do step 1 today, then Thursday we'll do steps 2 and 3, okay? Now, just keep in mind though, what we're trying to cause is crystallization. We got to get them to land on what the benefit is that they're looking for. Once they do that, they'll be empowered to buy. Okay, so step number 1 in this, I feel like I'm forgetting something. That's why I was like, what questions do you guys have? I feel like I'm forgetting something. Well, let me think, let me blow my nose and think for a minute. Nothing? No questions? I gotta stop doing such a good job explaining that. I'm kidding. All right. So how do we do it? Well, so typically the way, okay, it just hit me. I know what it is. Okay. What typically happens is this. The way that you and I have typically communicated is through a hunting and gathering. The way that we typically do it is this hunting and gathering, meaning typically well, in fact, actually, let me even say it this way. Go back in time, like 200 years ago. I don't know, we might not even have to go back that far in time. Go back in time 200 years ago. But what was the man's job? Yeah, to go out and go kill some food and bring it home to feed us, right? Go get food, go hunt and gather. What was the woman's job?
Nurturing, like, I'm gonna take care of.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Nurture.
Yeah.
The woman, so man's job was hunt and gather. The woman's job was nurture. So part of when I said to you guys that typically women do a better job at this is because just anthropologists would say because of the woman's job hundreds of years ago, we still carry that with us, that women tend to just be more nurturing. Men tend to be more hunters and gatherers. Like that's why when you sit down with, for the women, if you sit down with your spouse and you start to talk about your day, we kick into, well, you should have just done this, which you don't want us to do that. You just want us to listen, but we want to fix the problem because that's in our DNA is to go hunt and gather. Like I'm going to go kill a bear and I'll bring it back for us to eat. That's kind of what happens. So, but good news, bad news with that. Over the last, 50, 60, 70 years, I don't know how many, women have come more into the workplace, which has been a good thing in terms of like, it's helped to soften the men from being such hunters and gatherers. So, I mean, even I would tell you, over the 15 plus years that I've been teaching this, I have seen men get better at it. And I think it's as a result of this. Now, the bad news is I've seen women get more hunter and gathery-ish rather than being nurturing on this as well. But so what tends to happen though is most of the questions, when I go through like even the questions you guys put on Zoom here, let me go back to that. Where are they at? Let's see. I don't know. I'm not finding their questions. I know they put them in there. But typically the questions we ask are hunter-gatherer questions. How many bedrooms? How many baths? How many square feet? What location? Have you been pre-approved? Like all of those. And a lot of times what I will do is I'll use like this pen as a baton, a marker as a baton. And I will have somebody come up here and we'll do this exchange of they ask me a question, then they hand me the baton. And then I'm going to say, well, I want a 2-story and hand it back. Okay, well, how many bedrooms? 4. How many bathrooms? 4. How many car garage? 4. How many, what lot size? 1/4 acre. Like we play this game of 20 questions basically. And the reason again we do it is because it's tied to, I got to go try to find a house. And if they just said to me, I want a home that provides security and recreation. You're going to go, okay, what does that mean? I don't know what house that is. And again, even if you did, you're going to interpret what it means to you. Because if this is you here, and this is the client, you're going to interpret what that would mean to you, recreation or privacy or whatever. And you're going to go then find the house that meets your needs, not theirs. So we got to figure out, how do we figure out what theirs is? Well, it's a 3-step process. So step number 1 is we are going to start with what are called directives. Okay. So we're going to use something that are called directives. Directives are just what that sounds like. They're designed around you directing. So like think about the director of a movie. The director's job is to be like, oh, no, do that again, start over, like whatever. You know, let's redo that this time, do it a little more this way or whatever. That's what these directives are. Now, here's what we want to use. If we're going to use directives to begin with, the main one that I've found works the best, especially with, so I'm going to give you more than one. With a buyer, you're going to use the first one. With the seller, you're going to use all of them, which is why, again, I said, I'm training you how to do this with a buyer because it's just easier. And then once you understand it, we can go back to the seller. But you're going to start with a describe for me what, and we'll go through the detail of it. But anytime you're using a directive is going to be describe for me or share with me or help me understand or tell me about. So think of it this way. Now, we haven't talked too much about this yet, but the way your brain works is like a computer. It will respond according to the information given. Okay? Now, let me show you what I mean. And let me show you how, I'm going to show you how ineffective the way you and I have been trained to communicate is. Okay, so I'm going to ask you guys a question. And for you guys on Zoom, either unmute and answer or type it in the chat box. But for you guys that are here with me, answer my question that I have for you, okay? If I wanted to know what was going on a mile down the road, now, if you've heard me do this before, don't give away the answer. But if I wanted to know what was going on a mile down the road, should I ask a giraffe or a turtle? Okay. Okay, what about you guys on Zoom? Either
A
unmute or
turtle.
a what?
Turtle.
Okay, turtle. I see.
I can't answer. I remember the answer you gave before.
Okay, somebody even threw an emoji of a turtle in there. I love it. And now I got an emoji of a giraffe. That's cool. Okay, so those that said giraffe, why? Why did you say giraffe? Okay, because they have a longer neck. Okay, anybody have a different reason than that you chose a giraffe? Okay, so what about you guys online that said a turtle? Why a turtle?
Because they're slower and they take their time to, I guess, to listen to everything and their surroundings and all that.
Okay, good. And Stacy said because they win at everything. The tortoise and the hare, right? Yeah, and then Sylvia said because it pays more attention to details. Okay, great. You guys just all proved my point. So now answer this question. If I asked a giraffe or a turtle what was going on a mile down the road, what's going to happen? Like for real, if I walked up to a giraffe and said, what is going on a mile down the road? What's going to happen?
They can't give you the answer.
They can't answer me. What about the turtle? No. Now, remember what I said at the start of this? Your brain responds like a computer. It responds according to the information given, even if it doesn't necessarily make sense. Notice, not one of you guys said to me, I'm not going to ask either of them because what good is it going to do? They're not going to answer me. Notice that you didn't do that. See, our brain works like a computer. It responds according to the information that it's given. That's why we're going to use directives. See, I want to say to somebody, describe for me. So here's how I'm going to do it with a buyer. Describe for me your ideal home. That's the first question that you should be asking to a potential buyer is describe for me your ideal home. Now, let me tell you what most of the time is going to happen. Most of the time what's going to happen is because we have been trained to communicate at this conscious level, they think you want, when you say to somebody, describe for me your ideal home, guess what they think you want to hear?
How many bedrooms?
Oh, I erased it. Yeah, features.
Yeah.
The features. Beds, baths, square footage, that, that. So we're going to start with that. Describe for me your ideal home. Then what's going to happen is they should then respond and say a few things like, oh, I want 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, 2-car garage. So then now this next part is still part of tool 1. Okay, remember? So what we're going to do is I'm going to give you 3 tools. Tool number 1 here is designed around the pictures part of it. A little bit decisions too. Tool 2 is around the decisions. And then tool number 3 that we'll talk about is designed around the feelings. Okay. So right now what we're doing is we're trying to just get them picturing the property. Okay. So we're going to say, describe for me your ideal home. They then are going to start to talk about what the ideal home looks like. In addition to that, you're going to use something called prompters. You're going to use these prompters. And prompters are what else? Keep going. Or tell me more. Or say more. You could even just say it that way. Say more. Okay. So here's what's typically going to happen. So go back to the passing the baton thing using this marker, that if I said to somebody, hey, how many bedrooms do you want? And I hand them this, and then they are going to say 3 or 4 or whatever, and then they're going to hand me back the baton. Then I have to come up with the next question. Well, think of that same concept of passing the baton, okay? So I'm going to say to them, describe for me your ideal home. I'm then going to hand them the baton. They're typically going to start with the surface level stuff. 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, 2-car garage in Sandy, this, whatever. Then they're gonna hand me the baton back. Anytime that they figuratively, now you're not really gonna do this. I always panic when I say this, that somebody's gonna sit down with a buyer and be like, okay, Kate, describe for me your ideal home. Here you go. And then, that they're gonna do that. But figuratively, I want to say, describe for me your ideal home. And in my mind, I'm handing her the baton. She's then gonna start to reply back to me of, this many bedrooms, this many baths, When she figuratively hands me back the baton, meaning she quits talking and it's kind of like, okay, I'm done answering the question. I'm gonna then use a prompter to help her keep going. Now, in addition to the prompter, I want to use, I'm just gonna put it here as PF, but PF stands for positive feedback. Okay?
Hey, Russ,
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Could you reread the prompters for me? I can't see them that well. I'm trying to
Yep.
take
Yes.
notes.
Yeah, for sure. So what else? Keep going. Either tell me more or say more. You could use either of those. So what else? Keep going, say more, or tell me more. So what would happen then is I'm going to say to Caitlin, so describe for me your ideal home. She starts to tell me a few things. No matter what she tells me, whether it's a lot of information or a little information, I am then going to use a prompter to say, but some positive feedback. So when she tells me 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, 2-car garage, I'm going to go, great. I totally understand that. That sounds awesome. Tell me more. So when I say that to her, tell me more. Now remember, the brain works like a computer. It's going to respond according to the information given. Tell me more. How's she going to interpret that when I say, hey, you're doing a great job. That's awesome. Tell me more. What's it going to force you to do?
Dig deeper.
Give more detail.
Yeah, good. Perfect. That's right. Now notice what I've noticed happens with this is when you say, describe for me your ideal home, they think you want to hear at this level. So they'll usually start to tell you at that level. But the moment you throw a prompter in, you go, hey, that's awesome. Tell me more. What happens is they then realize, oh, they're wanting to like really hear what I'm looking for in a home, which forces them down into here now. So what starts happening is typically what you'll see is this. If you watch kind of my face, and I don't know how well you guys on Zoom can see it, but typically you'll see something like this. So in fact, do it with me. Do the describe for me the ideal home. I'll talk for a second. I'll just say 3 bedroom, 2 bath, 2-car, and then you say, tell me more, but then you guys watch, because this is what typically people will do.
Okay, so describe for me your ideal home.
4 bedrooms, 3 baths, 4-car garage on a huge lot.
Okay, great. What else?
See, and then all of a sudden they go, oh, okay, and then they start to think, which means they're going down into here. Go ahead.
So something else that I find out is curious when you say why, like why you think it's important for you? What are you gonna do with this?
Okay, good. So hold that though. So for you guys on Zoom, she said, what she found is helpful is to asking, why do you want 3 bedrooms, 2 baths? And you're right, but that's gonna be part of tool number 3. No, you're good. Because that is where we're gonna go. But here's what the problem is. The reason we don't do it right off the bat is if you do it right off the bat with a house, well, do it with me. So start over. Describe for me.
Your ideal home.
I want 4 bedrooms, 4 baths, and a 4-car garage on an acre.
Okay, great. Why?
That's just what we want. I don't know. Like that's the problem is that if they haven't asking the why to cause crystallization is what we want to do. So you're right on. It's just what I've found is if you ask why too soon, they just say, well, it'd be perfect.
Well,
that doesn't help.
And your prompters really, that is the why that you're getting.
Yeah, that's right. What?
I mean, at the end of it, I think it's, then you have your why.
Yeah, yes. So what you're going to do is say, so what else? Now, what you will notice then is they go, oh, they don't consciously say, oh, but inside they're kind of like, oh, she really wants to know what I'm looking for in a home. Okay, well then yeah, let me start. And so what you'll find is they typically, when they start to access this part of the brain, either of these, everybody's going to do it a little differently, but you will find that they'll do some type of either this or they'll do a this, or a sideways look. They'll do something, and everybody kind of has their own way they go about doing it, but they'll do some form of, oh, okay, well, let's see. I mean, and sometimes they'll start to say, well, right now, so let me do what I would really do right now, is I would be saying, so if you said, what else? I would say, well, right now, Caitlin, we have a 2-story, and actually I love the amount of square footage that it has, but I don't like I've got too much wasted space in it. Like, we've got a formal dining. Who uses a formal dining anymore? So notice, like, all of a sudden they really start to talk, and they're going to start sharing with you some of these details. To some extent, know that even though I'm saying this is tool 1, tool 1 will access both of these areas. Tool number 2 also does both of these areas, but think of it as initially this directives is going to focus more on this. And tool number 2, when we get to it, which we won't do till Thursday, is going to focus more on this piece. Okay. So we're going to start with, though, describe for me your ideal home. And then when they stop talking and figuratively hand the baton to you, you're going to say, hey, you're doing a great job. What else? Or, hey, tell me more. And you got to say it like you're a little bit more, like you are interested. Like, hey, that's awesome. Tell me more. And then they're going to start to tell you more. Then when they hand me back the baton again, I'm going to say, man, you are doing a really, really good job of explaining this to me. And I'm getting a really good picture. What else? Because I want to just try to keep getting as much information out of that as I can. How you'll know when you can stop doing the prompters is at some point they're going to say this. Well, so you do it, do it any one of these.
Keep going.
God, I don't think I can think of anything else.
Okay, great.
See, so that's when you know you're going to stop with tool number 1 is when they say, that's pretty much it. So they're going to say, that's about it. I don't know what else to tell you. I mean, I can't think of anything else. So you're going to somewhat do that. Now, you do a little bit run the risk, which what you were bringing up of them saying, why are you asking me all these questions? Why are you wanting to know that? So here's how we deal with this. So I mentioned to you guys, I'm driving to St. George. So we're going to wrap up here in 5 minutes because I want to get on the road, but that's okay. This is about where I wanted to get to anyway. The one piece where we'll end today on is this. Before you do all this, you want to ask for permission. Now on Thursday, I'm going to give you guys 3 scripts. So I'll tell you the permission script right now, but then on Thursday, we'll deal with all of them and I'll give you a handout that has all 3 of the scripts on them. But so here's what you want to do. Before you take somebody through this, what I want to do is I would want to say, hey, Caitlin, before we get started, what I have found is that I have just some questions that I need to ask you. And some of the questions may feel personal, maybe things you haven't considered about a home before. And may even, now I usually do this. It usually scares most agents too much. So when the script I give to you is not going to have this in it. But I usually will say, may even make you a little uncomfortable. Is that going to be okay? And then they're going to say yes. So you got to, before you do this, you want to get permission. So you're going to say, in order for us to determine, and I'll give you the script, but in order for us to determine whether or not I can help you, I need to ask you some questions that may feel personal, maybe things you haven't considered. Is that going to be okay? And then I always throw in that, so they may be things you haven't, they may feel personal, maybe things you haven't considered, may even make you a little uncomfortable. Is that going to be okay? Yeah.
Okay, so what about when you get all that done and then they go excited about all these details and you can either not find something or you cannot get the perfect house?
Okay, perfect.
So
Great.
How do you bring them down?
Great
to that
question.
argument?
Good question. So here's how I'm going to answer. And here's the thing. The question, so did you guys hear it on Zoom or do I need to repeat?
Please repeat.
Okay, because you guys are going to have this thought on Zoom and you guys, this question she just asked is going to come up again on Thursday. Just no, that's okay. It is part of the process. And here's how I'm going to answer it. Remember I said this. Features and benefits. So, and this is a great question. So thank you for asking. So, and here's how I'm going to answer it every time, because it's going to come up. It may not be worded the same way, but the question she's asking is, what do we do when they describe the ideal home and it doesn't exist out there anywhere? So how are we going to deal with it? So here's the answer. Features have a price tag, benefits don't. Okay, now here's the key. Remember, they're not buying the feature. So they're going to describe a whole bunch of features, no different than me. Oh, I got to get flip charts so that I can flip back or somehow get the thing to come back on the screen. But features have a price tag. It's no different than when I said, I want to buy a home on 1 acre, but I didn't buy a home on an acre, but I got the benefit. Okay, so keep in mind, we're using the features that they're going to talk about to get to what the benefit is. And it's about the benefit. So yeah, so great question, meaning they're going to start. And in the beginning, it feels like that, about a little bit like, well, what are we going to do now after they describe the ideal home and I can't now find it because there's no inventory, or just that house, even if there was every home on the whole valley was for sale, it doesn't exist. Well, it's not the feature they're buying. We're using the feature to get down to a benefit. Once we land on what the benefit is, they're going to buy the benefit. Just like how I went and bought a 1/4 acre, but the benefit I was looking for was recreation, and I have that in a 1/4 acre lot. So let me say it this way, even too. Somebody that says they want to have a pool. What if somebody said that we want to have a swimming pool? So in our backyard, we want to have a swimming pool. Yet, when you go get them pre-qualified, they qualify for like $350,000. How could they get a pool in the $350,000 price range? Actually, let me even make it worse. Let me make it worse than that. They want a pool and their price range is $100,000. How could you get a pool?
You're gonna
The
find a home
benefits.
next to a community, like a
Perfect.
community pool.
Perfect. Or where I was going in my head is there are mobile home parks that have pools.
Yeah.
So you could go buy them a mobile home and
Yeah.
they've got a pool. So, but keep in mind, when they start describing this, they're describing the feature, and we are going to have a tendency to get stuck on the feature, but they don't want the feature. It's the benefit. No different than I want a home high on a hill with a view of the city lights, and they buy it in the canyon surrounded by trees. It's because they're buying the benefit, not the feature. Is that helpful?
Yeah.
So just remember, we're going to find and here's the thing. Here's what I can tell you. This is the bigger thing. If the home doesn't have the benefit they're looking for, they won't buy it. The home might not have the feature, but if it has the benefit. So let me give you one other quick example. Somebody shows up and says they want a 3-car garage. Well, part of what we have to do is find out what's the purpose behind the 3-car garage, because is it possible? Well, let me not say is it. It is possible. I've had this before. Somebody showing up, I want a home with a garage. Then they go buy one that doesn't have a garage. And I'm like left scratching my head. But the reason they wanted the garage is because they wanted a woodworking shop, and they pictured it had to be in a garage, when in reality, they went and found a home that had a separate shed that was a woodworking shop. And they're like, oh, that's perfect. That will work. See, that's how we get. So don't worry about the feature. We're going to use the feature to get to the benefit. But once we land on the benefit, it's the benefit they're buying, not the feature. Make sense? Okay, good. Great question. All right. So permission. The permission script, which I'll give you that again on Thursday, but if you ask for permission, you're less likely to have them say, why are you asking me all these questions? This is weird, because you've started it by saying, in order to determine if I can help you, I need to ask you some questions. They may feel personal, maybe things you haven't considered. Is that going to be okay? Yeah.
I also feel like you know exactly why asking and why deep inside of you, and then you are controlling the situation.
Yes.
And they start trusting you because you're the one that knows, and you control.
That's right.
it very well at the beginning.
Perfect. Yeah. So for you guys on Zoom, what she said is by you doing this, it creates
And like
this.
a very fine line, but if you can like control the fine line, it's a very controlling deal for now then.
Yeah, and so what she was saying is basically by you doing this, you're taking control of the situation. And the other thing I'll tell you that comes out of it is they feel like you really listen. Now, so
You really know.
yeah, that you really know. That's right. And so for me, let me tell you one other quick story and then we'll wrap up. And that is, when I first learned this, I went to the Bay Area. I flew to San Francisco area, and I don't even, it was probably more Oakland or something. But anyway, I was in the Bay Area. And I remember there was a loan officer in the class. And so what the loan officer was trained to say was, describe for me the ideal loan officer. And I had been in the business a couple of years, 2 or 3 years at that point. I think 3. And I remember the loan officer saying, describe for me the ideal loan officer. Well, I was frustrated with loan officers. And I started telling them, all right, here's what the ideal loan officer would look like. And I'm like, they're gonna tell me the truth. That was kind of where I started. They're gonna tell me the truth. They're not gonna call me and tell me, yes, their client can qualify. If there's any hesitation at all, they're gonna tell me, hey, it looks pretty good, but it's not necessarily a done deal. You know, we're gonna have to work through some things. They're going to tell me, they're going to call me every week and update me as to, here's where your client's at, here's what we're doing, here's how close we are to getting it done. They're going to never call me with any surprises at the end. Like, I started detailing out all this. This is what an ideal loan officer would look like. And where this whole thing hit home for me is at the end of that, after he had gone through tool 2 and 3, I remember I said to this guy, if you were a loan officer in Utah, because he was from actually the Bay Area, I remember I said, if you were a loan officer in Utah, I would give you all my loans. Now, here's the thing. We're still in the early stages, but based on what this, describe for me your ideal home, what else, keep going. How much are we telling them of what we would, meaning like the loan officer asking me, describe for me the ideal loan officer. Okay, sure. What else? Okay, keep going. All
If
right,
they
tell me
truly
more.
care about it.
Yeah, notice how much did the loan officer tell me though? Like of what he does for my clients? Nothing. All he did was listen to me. This is what I would want. And he, okay, sure. Makes sense. Oh yeah, if I were you, I'd feel that way too. What else? Keep going. And at the end, I was like, I would give you all my business. And that's when it hit me. That's what this does with a client is they feel heard. And it allows them to really connect with you and be like, this person understands me. And the thing is all we're doing is saying, what else?
Spill your guts and ranting.
Yeah, that's it. That's all it is. Does that make sense? Okay, what other questions? Okay, well, we'll stop here for today then. So Thursday, what we'll do is I'll just do a quick refresher on some of this stuff because I got to make sure you guys remember what's the purpose of it. That's the most important thing. So, and then what we'll do is I'll do a refresher on this and then we'll jump into tools 2 and 3. I'll give you the 15 benefit words and show you how all of this ties together. Cool. Okay. And you guys in St. George, I'll see you in person tomorrow. And then I'll see you guys back here Thursday.
What time tomorrow, Russ? Did you say 9 a.m.?
9 o'clock is what time we'll start. So, okay.
Awesome. Thanks, Rob.
You're
Thank you.
welcome. Thanks for being here. So yeah, I'm heading out now, down there, teach that class, and then I'm jumping in the car and drive back home. Do a lot of driving over the next 24 hours.
For a deal that I have.
Yes.
In Park City, so 775, the house is on sale, the client only has 600 cash. Is cash key to that matter? Like, without, do we have a chance to think?
Oh, to get the house for that? Probably not, but you never know, maybe. I mean, it
Okay,
depends
do
on,
we want to make it stronger? Do I want inspection or do I don't? Do I say no inspection?
I would leave it up to the client on the
Okay,
inspection.
client.
But here's what I probably would say is, what you should do is call the listing agent and say, besides price, what else is important? Obviously, the price is important, but what else would be important?
So meaning what?
Well, what you're looking for is there something like, is to them a quick closing?
I
Like, if,
see.
so,
Okay,
so
do we
if
have
you,
a chance?
yeah, just call and say, hey, I've got a client who would pay $600,000 cash. You know, where are we at?
So
What are
we are under contract to sell this house.
Okay.
In Park City, we're closing the 31st.
Okay,
So do we want to put, do I put, buying on contingency, the bottom part, like to sell the property that I have?
when is it closing?
The 31st.
Of October? Oh, I would.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So even if the house is in somebody else's name, it's not specifically in the seller's name?
well, can they close on it if it doesn't sell?
No.
So for me, that's the deciding factor is,
No,
can they close on it
absolutely
with that?
I'm like super late, huh?
Yeah, we're done.
Oh my god.
It's starting at 10.
Yeah, we're done.
I mean, I got 2 people pre-qualified, so just got caught up in the whole
Oh,
thing,
cool.
so that's good.
Yeah, well, I'm actually driving to St. George, so we ended a half an hour early, but
Dang it.
you still were.
Yeah, that's sound pretty late. That's like,
Come
this is
Thursday.
This is like the one I needed.
Oh.
Like have all the other
It was a good
ones.
Were you really?
Yeah, so I have to,
It was
and
a
then
good one.
this happened last time too, where like, I just need this one, I keep missing it for some reason. So,
Well, go online and watch it, and then we just email.
and then I can credit,
Huh?
is it on the email? Can I
It's just
see?
on YouTube. Go to YouTube. Well, it won't, not yet. It's not. I'll probably upload it
Tonight or something
tonight
tomorrow.
or tomorrow, but yeah.
Okay, all right, yeah, I guess I can do that.
But email me after you watch it, or you can go watch the last time I did it too. That one would be already
On
on.
YouTube.
Yeah, just go to Century 21 Evers Training and do a search for needs analysis day 1. Cool.
Sweet, and then you said Thursdays, day 2.
2. Yep.
Awesome.
Okay. 10 o'clock. So yeah, I would just call the agent and say, hey, I've got these people, but technically, if it can't happen without it, you should just make it contingent. So, because that way it's fair to.
Oh, yeah, but she won't ever qualify for that money.
Right.
So it's really up to them.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, not finding any condominiums for 600. So I trying to tell them to go. So this is very helpful because I've been telling you to come down to the city.
Yeah.
To Sandy or something. you
Yeah,
know? What
yeah.
are you looking for? What is?
Yeah,
why-
find the benefit. Yep.
Okay.
Cool.
Cool. Yeah, no, thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome.
So do we still get, do we still get Zoom